Okay, welcome to today's Harbour Committee. So welcome members, welcome officers, welcome to anybody watching online. I'm advised there's at least one person online at the moment. Obviously we're waiting on the hordes arriving there. We have no planned fire alarms in the building today, so if the alarm does go off, then if you exit through the main door, go down the ramp and assemble adjacent to the cathedral, and I'll wait for the alarm going off and getting back in the building, I guess. We have had, we'll start with a round of introductions as we usually do. So I'm Councillor Andrew Brown, I am the Harbour Committee Chair, and we'll go around this way, members of the committee and then officers. But Ash, do you want to?
Ashley Ferrero, Policy Committee Officer.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick McAllister, of the Vice Chair of the committee.
Councillor Shabalala, Central Ward.
Catherine Davis, Co-op.
Kevin Mowat, Co-opted Member.
Andy Brigden, Co-opted Member.
Councillor Kai Dudd, Southmead Ward.
Thank you. And then if I start with Patsy and then go down the officers.
Patsy Miller, Director Management of Place.
David Lockwood, Director and Harbour Master.
Kevin J, Finance Manager.
Pete Seed, Operations Manager.
Eric Dougal, Harbour Estate Manager.
Maria Pearce, Harbour Office Manager.
Henrietta Ridgeon, Principal Dock Engineer.
Thank you very much, everyone. Just so you're aware, the conference hall next door has been booked out, and so there's a bit of noise bleed. If it gets too much, we'll go through and ask them to stop. My understanding is that there was a confusion about what time they were supposed to finish and what time we were starting. So we'll live with it if we can, but if it does get too much for anyone, do let me know, because I know that, these rooms can be difficult to hear in sometimes at the best of times. And I'd also like to say a particular welcome to Henrietta as new Principal Docks Engineer. Welcome. Apologies for absence and substitutions. Ash, do you want to update us on that?
Councillor Richard Eddy and Councillor Annie Townsend have both sent their apologies.
Thank you very much. Do any of the elected members have any declarations of interest that they feel they need to declare? Patrick?
Thank you, Chair. As is standard, I'll declare that I have an outside bodies appointment as a trustee of We the Curious.
Thank you very much. So next we have the minutes of the previous meeting. I have noted an error in the list of members present, which we'll get sorted. Has anybody else got any issues with the minutes in terms of accuracy? I'm not seeing anybody comment on that. So can we take them? I need a seconder. So move them as a correct record. And Patrick,
seconded.
Lovely, thank you. So we're content to confirm that those are a correct record. Moving on, Chair's announcement. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring to the attention of committee members. So the first is that I have today, this morning, signed a letter of compliance in my role as duty holder for the Harbour, and that's to the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, confirming that the Harbour Authority is compliant with the requirements of the Ports and Marine Facilities Safety Code. This follows on from the recent independent audit process conducted by our designated person, Richard Fawn, from ABP Mayor. And the client's exercise is for the period 2026 to 2028. So we're certifying in advance that we are meeting the code, and the team will complete that process online with the MCA. The other thing I wanted to bring to committee members' attention is that approval was recently given through an officer decision notice to award a contract to Bullo Limited to carry out dredging in 5 areas of the harbour in order to maintain the navigation routes, and that is happening now, so between the 2nd of March and the 1st of June. So those are my updates as Chair's business. Patrick.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to note for the record that because we didn't have any public forum today, and I think that is a positive sign. It shows that the proactive engagement that we're doing with the harbour community is working to help assuage people's concerns, and certainly my email inbox is a lot quieter from a lot of the harbour community over the last few months, I think, as we've continued to improve at that. So I think that is something we should all be very proud of.
Thank you, Patrick. And as it happens, the next item on the agenda is public forum. And, you know, as Patrick said, we have no public forum on this occasion. And, you know, that has been a change. And, you know, when I think back to the first Harbour Committee getting on for 2 years ago now, when we had substantial amounts of questions and statements in, and we have gradually seen that reduce over time as we have sought to tackle some of those underlying issues. So, yeah, positive sign, I think. Agenda item 7 is the Harbour Capitals project. So we shall move on to that. And I'm going to go to David to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. I am presenting the Harbour Capitals project programme for 2026 to 27, covering the essential works. Bristol's floating harbour is now over 200 years old, and although its use has shifted from commercial to predominantly leisure and recreation, however, much of the original infrastructure remains in place. This ageing asset base requires continued investment to ensure it remains safe, reliable and compliant for residents, visitors, commercial operators, as well as for recreational users. We are seeking approval for a programme totalling £7.646 million to maintain, repair and future-proof this critical infrastructure. The key projects included are Cascade Steps, Landing Stage and Viewing Platform, Pharaoh's Bridge, Underfall Yard Sluice Gates, Neffham Lock, Harbour Entrance Lock Gates, Prince Street Bridge, as well as a harbour-wide structural assessment. We'll now go back and just give a little bit of background information on all of those different points. So Cascade Steps and Landing Stage with the viewing platform is a central ferry landing point. The timber deck and supporting beams have deteriorated beyond repair. Replacement using composite materials is required to avoid closure of this important asset. The Pharaoh's Bridge, a 2025 inspection, identified structural issues leading to initial weight restrictions and a no-lift notice. A visual inspection after removal of padlocks has identified that the repairs needed are not as substantial as first thought. However, a full survey is still required to identify the requirements to restore to full public access and also operational capability as a bridge to restore navigation. The Underfall Yard sluice gates are a critical water level and flood management asset, the inspection and refurbishment which are essential. The works will be supported by an Environment Agency grant and aid of £1.3 million, with the remaining £900,000 made from the capital investment from the Council. Neffham Lock dive surveys are planned to review the gate defects, requiring repair to maintain both the navigation and water level, as well as the flood management. And harbour entrance lock gates, these have surpassed their lifespan and require inspection, emergency repairs and hydraulic system refurbishment to maintain safe vessel access as per our statutory requirements. Prince Street Bridge has got various increasing mechanical failures and mean investment is required to ensure it can continue to swing safely for vessel passages. And the harbour-wide structural assessment is principally inspection of the harbour walls, so is needed to inform a long-term asset management plan. Collectively, these works ensure we continue to meet our statutory duties, maintain navigation and support the city's flood defences. We ask the committee to approve the plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Before I come to members, I'm just going to say I think it's it's interesting. When I took on the chair, of Economy and Skills, that's when I got presented with this bonus piece of information that I was also going to be chair of the Harbour Committee. And my life prior to that, I had seen a fair amount of information on the finances and operations across most of the council, but I hadn't had an insight into the Harbour Committee, so it was a steep learning curve. And you know, I always knew the harbour as a place of recreation to walk around, particularly going back to COVID. It was, you know, like a lot of people out on my daily walk would often lead me down and round the harbour. But I hadn't fully appreciated that what had been bequeathed to us by the Victorians in building the floating harbour was also a substantial amount of infrastructure that becomes increasingly costly to maintain. And you know, that has obviously been a historic challenge to the council, and now particularly with the emergence of the HRO and the ring-fenced account to the Harbour Authority and to us as a Harbour Committee. And it's good to see this paper so that we can put in the public domain you know, the scope and scale of some of the challenges we're facing, but B, the fact that we are addressing these issues and investing heavily in ensuring that the harbour is maintained in the way that we have inherited it, and will be made fit for the future as well. And I'm reflecting a little bit on something I heard David say recently about stewardship, and you know, we are stewards of the, you know, as councillors we're stewards of the city, but you know, as a Harbour Committee we are stewards of the harbour for the time being, and we need to make sure that that we do our bit to make sure that there are future generations still have something to steward in their turn. So I'd like to thank David and the team for bringing this paper outlining all the investment that we are making to make the harbour better. So, members, is there anyone else would like to contribute on this? I can see Catherine. I'm going to come to Catherine first and then Patrick.
Just querying Perrow's Bridge, because there seems to be some contrary statements throughout the report. So we had the report from the last minutes that said things were better than they expected, and then that there's a report due to come through with the prices on, and then changes at the end. But there's an ask in here for 1.35 million. Why does it sound a little bit contrary in all the minutes in terms of things being better on the bridge than expected, and yet there's quite a hefty chunk on there?
Thanks for your question there, Catherine. So, as you appreciate, when the report was first written, it was based around need of 1.3 million, and at that stage, it wasn't entirely known or understood exactly how much is required to do the work. And until we've actually done a actual mechanical inspection of that fully, then it still remains a bit of a question mark on exactly how much it is. The initial inspection, once all the padlocks have been removed, I noticed now we're now putting ribbons on there, which is a nice alternative. But now we can actually visually inspect it. The initial review was going to be it looks like it's in better condition than we assumed. However, once we have done that mechanical inspection, then we will have a full, clear understanding of that and be able to proceed accordingly. So we're asking for the money so that worst case scenario, we have the money there so we can actually undertake it all and get it back operational again. However, in the best case scenario, there'll be, it won't be all used, and that'll be able to return to the capital funds for the council.
Patsy.
So just to reassure that standard practice, I'm responsible for highways, and whenever we undertake works on any bridge, we never know what's going to be under there till you open it up. So we do ask for enough to make sure that we can complete the project.
Patrick.
Thank you. Catherine had actually very neatly gazumped my entire question there, so thank you. But I will just say thank you very much for this report, and I'll associate myself with Councillor Brown's comments about how good it is to see this in the public domain, so we can show not only the scale of the challenges, but also the scale of the work we're doing to overcome them. So thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Kai.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm terribly inconsistent in
Sorry?
I said Kai or Councillor Dudd, and I always end up being inconsistent about what I call people in these meetings.
Call me what you want. Yeah, a couple of questions. One is on the source of the money, because I think there was some confusion at the budget around strategic SIL being used for cascade steps. So can we put that on record and so in the minutes it's clear that strategic SIL isn't being used for the cascade steps. So the advice the Labour group was given for the budget meeting was incorrect. So are we happy to put that on the record? I don't know if someone from finance could be clear about that.
So the source of funding is capital funding. All of the projects outlined were capital bids put in for capital funding. However, as we start these projects, we always work with strategic SIL to see if any of it might be applicable. At the moment, we haven't got any strategic SIL applied to cascade steps, and capital funding is the source.
So does anyone know what happened to the strategic SIL that was originally allocated against this?
There wasn't any allocated against that. I think the confusion came where capital corporate finance had assumed in the overall capital budget that some of those capital projects, whether it be in the harbour, whether it be in highways or transport or whatever, would investigate the use of strategic SIL instead of capital prudential borrowing.
Okay, and then the second question is, obviously we've got a number of projects up there. Are those the most urgent projects, or is there kind of a pipeline of other projects that we need to do, but this is all that we can afford? So is this like 10% of what needs to be done, or what's the kind of percentage, would you say?
I couldn't give you a percentage, but it's a very small amount of what needs done in the harbour. So as you know, we only have a limited amount of capital funding that has to be spread across all departments in the council. So as part of the capital bid process, all my heads of service complete bids, and we work through an internal team basis, prioritising which ones are urgent and which ones are health and safety, which ones need done first. And this is just the outcome of that is so they're prioritised as health and safety, or they need done first. It's by no means all of the work that needs done in the harbour.
Which is to say we'll have future papers like this in future years. Sips.
Thanks. Yeah, this is a welcome infrastructure improvement. I'm quite interested in the context of this. So just to understand at which point would we expect such intense renovations for the future, so that you can forecast this at some point within your budget. So what has happened previously in terms of the lack of investment, and what's that impact been? Because clearly the lack of investment previously, or however many years that's been, in terms of when you look at your infrastructure, how many years do you need to reinvest in it so that you've got a consistent approach in maintenance versus only addressing things when they really like at their worst, because then it costs you more versus maintenance. So in this budget, is there a maintenance cost to kind of, as we're having that discussion, around how do you maintain these assets long term? Or is this budget mainly just about the repair that you need immediately and not about the maintenance of it? Yeah. And where is the maintenance element of this if this is just only about just the infrastructure costs? I think that's part one of my question. Part two, looking at the equalities impact assessment, you've got the diversity within the team, and then you've also got charitable vessels that are within the harbour. I'd like to see there's a significant amount of spend, and not all of it is obviously coming through via procurement, yeah, because it's different budgets. All right, I'd like to see a very tailored approach to how you're actually going to use your social value within when you procure this. I went to the Youth New Horizon Youth Marine event last week, Thursday, and that was brilliant. Seeing those young people from young Bristol that are taking on careers in the harbour, and the diversity of those young people that were there, for me, is like, this is what we want to see. And I'd like to kind of see what's the intentional approach of diversifying the harbour, both in terms of work, both in terms of apprenticeships, but in terms of community use. I think that was really key. So though at the moment we have the social value that is broad, how do you ensure that this 7 million, whichever way part of it, can actually meet the needs of the harbour? For me, that is what I'd really like to see within the spend, that you are intentional about that. You've got the charitable vessels, and some of them do need some investment to improve them. And how can you use your social value, whatever you've got within the spend, to improve your harbour without your own purse? And I'd like to see that approach, Patsy. I think, so I'd welcome your insights into some of those stuff, and also the question around budget.
Thanks, Ibs. Patsy?
Thank you, Chair. So in answer to your first question, this does just cover the repairs. So the business plan that was adopted in January, that clearly shows an increase in the harbour maintenance. So it's not just about getting revenue break even in 2030. If you notice, the staffing costs go up, the maintenance costs go up over that 5-year period as well. Because when we did the review in 2021, the outcome was we didn't have the correct number of staff, we didn't have enough staff, and we didn't have enough maintenance. So the business plan hopes to address that. So each year you will see an increase in maintenance. So that's how we'll maintain it. So the funding here is just for the immediate repairs that's needed and the replacement that's needed. In terms of your question around social value, I have got a meeting with the head of procurement that we are looking specifically how we can do more localised targeting in parks and harbours on social value. And Sibs, thank you for your comments when we met with David. That prompted me to book that conversation. So I am looking at how we can do that rather than having a generic local economy, apprenticeships, and we're looking to see how we can do a more targeted approach in the harbour. In relation to the diversity question, I think in June you'll be really excited by the work that the harbour team's doing to introduce specific targeted apprentices into the harbour, and we're going to provide a full update from our qualities rep in June to the Harbour Committee. So as you know, each directorate has their own quality and diversity stream, and the harbour has its own representation, and she's been doing fantastic work in that field. So I look forward to updating you in June.
Thank you. Yeah, follow up.
Going back to, thank you for that. Going back to the announcements in terms of the safety and the crime, I think you mentioned it was like an audit or something. I think what I'd like to see is that this repairs, how does that support the visitor economy? Yes, it's fixing the stuff, but at the same time, you've also got opportunities to, bring in additional flair or something that brings in the visitor economy. So because we can't see the report in terms of what is the safety, what did the audits actually find, to understand how are we improving safety in the harbour, how are we improving the nighttime economy safety within the harbour, like lighting, for example, that would be a great feature. All of these kind of things really make a significant difference. So it'd be good, to get the report of what the audit for safety and crime is, because Central Ward, Harbour Ward, we've got quite a significant amount of crime in terms of the indicators, to really see that we are addressing those in a smart way and working with the police and designing our crime team to make sure that this is happening at the same time, and our Visit West kind of approach. I don't know if that's something that's kind of within this purchasing. Are you also thinking beyond just the repairs to really maximize on the time and opportunity of what you're doing?
So the designing out crime, I'm not sure I can cover today. We probably need a further discussion on that. We are undertaking the safety review, a whole safety review that's happening throughout March. Starting next week, that will look at harbour safety as a whole, including the nighttime economy. So we will react to that. We also, the team have reviewed the immediate safety precautions that are in there. We look to build on that. We have had a meeting with Schreider, who do our corporate lighting. We're contracted with for our corporate lighting across the city. And they are looking at ways on how we could improve that. I'm not sure what they can do. They're trying to be innovative and come up with some new ideas. But one of the things that we've asked them to look at is if someone steps over that yellow line into the warning you are approaching the waterside, if it could be lit up so that, you know, maybe the security on nightclubs at 3 in the morning could see an area of the harbour lit up and know to attend. We're not sure what's possible yet, but we have asked the question. In relation to the visitor economy, that's the focus of the commercial prospectus. So that is about attracting more footfall into the harbour, making the harbour more appealing to tourists, more of a recreational offer. Sorry, I couldn't get that word out. So we've got lots of strands going on that's trying to cover all of that.
Thank you, Patsy. Any other questions or comments on the capital budget? Kevin.
So just, Chair, listening to this debate, and forgive me if I've asked this question before, David rightly articulates the fact that there's 200 years of history here and more, lots of moving parts, ageing infrastructure. So a couple of questions. Do we have an asset management plan for all these complicated assets? And does that plan cover the commitment in terms of revenue to planned maintenance versus the interjection of capital maintenance as we're seeing in this report? Because obviously you can't do everything with a planned maintenance system, not least because your revenue budget won't support it. And equally, you can't go through life with a reactive maintenance philosophy either. So I hope the answer is going to be yes, you have an asset management plan with yes to all those other questions, but I thought I should ask. Thank you.
So we do have an asset management plan. It's used across the council. I think it's fair to say, and I'll be open and transparent here, it's not as well developed as the one we've got in highways or parks. And Henrietta is aware of that, and one of Henrietta's priorities over the next few months is to get that into development and improve it.
Thanks, Patsy. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. So we shall move to a vote. So this is the Harbour Committee's second key decision, following the one that we approved last time around. So for clarity, we are being asked to approve the request to spend $900,000 to repair the defects found on the Cascade Steps, landing stage and viewing platform, to allow it to have continued unrestricted use by ferry operators and the public. Approve the request to spend $1,350,000 to repair, I guess that's up to, depending on what we find, to repair the defects found with Piro's Bridge, allowing it to be brought back into full unrestricted use. Approve the request to a further $1,290,000 grant and aid funding from the Environment Agency, so that's external funding we've received, and spend that to fund the repair of underfall yard sluice gates and install a replacement harbour control system. Approve £900,000 of funding to carry out repairs to the culverts at underfall yards. So that's not been covered by the EA, the scope of which will be identified by the imminent dive inspections. And again, in the event that not all those funds are required, the surplus will be returned to the capital account. Approve request to spend $600,000 to repair and reseat the gates at Netham Lock. To approve $580,000 to carry out inspections and repairs to the harbour entrance lock gates to enable safe operation until the Avon Riverside 2100, which is the new name for the Bristol Avon flood strategy, until that strategy delivers a replacement solution. To approve $225,000 to spend to repair Prince Street Bridge. To approve $1,800,000 on a structural assessment inspection of the whole of the harbour to determine structures requiring essential repairs and maintenance below the waterline. To authorise the Executive Director, Growth and Regen, in consultation with myself, to procure and award contracts required for the projects described above in line with the procurement routes and maximum budget envelopes outlined in the report, and also to approve the Executive Direction for Growth and Regeneration, again in consultation with myself, to invoke any subsequent extensions, variations specifically defined in the contracts being awarded up to the maximum budget envelope outlined in the report. I think that's the longest list of recommendations I've ever had to read out in committee. So, do I have a seconder? Thank you, Patrick. All those in favour, can you indicate? And that was everyone. So thank you very much. That was unanimously agreed. So next we have the Harbour Master report. So my papers say, do I want to suggest a break here? But we're only half an hour in. So David, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This report summarises the key operational and strategic activity across the Harbour Authority during a reporting period November 2025 to January 2026. First, in terms of overall context, the Harbour continues to deliver essential operational, engineering and safety functions supported by significant new council investment. For financial year 26-27, an additional £7.6 million has been allocated to strengthen our long-term resilience with the capital projects, infrastructure and flood defence capability. Looking at the operations, during the winter period, daily patrols, safety checks and flotsam clearance continued as normal. Entrance lock remained operational but restricted due to ongoing structural issues with interim safety arrangements in place. Neffam lock continued to provide access during this period. Vessel movements were lower as expected for the winter season. However, the mooring occupancy is at its highest level ever, now at 88%. With a strong demand and a waiting list of 30 larger vessels, mainly liveaboard narrowboats. A draft report has been undertaken by consultants on the mooring demands, and this will be, once we've got the final version, will support long-term planning and strategy around this. Turning to safety, importantly, there were no marine incidents or near misses during this period. However, as previously reported in the previous period, sadly, 2 fatalities occurred in the harbour area, and we continue to support the coroner and we shall review the findings once available. As I'm sure some people are aware, the inquest is currently being adjourned whilst further reports are being read, and we will continue to work with the coroner as required on this. Meanwhile, as Patsy mentioned it previously, we have commenced an internal safety audit of the harbour. This is in connection with the Council's internal health and safety organisation and an external specialist who's coming in to support this. And also we continue to engage the wider Water Safety Partnership Group, currently which we are the chair of. During this period, we continue to welcome approximately 1 million visitors a year around the harbour, both on foot and by boat. And we shall continue to make sure they have a safe and enjoyable visitation. On engineering, monitoring and maintenance of critical assets continues with the locks, the bridges and the sluices, continued throughout the winter period. Positive survey results were received for Faroes Bridge and repairs at Plimsoll Bridge continue. Work at the entrance lock also remains ongoing, as does the work required for Neffam lock. The capital programme continues to focus on major infrastructure, including the entrance lock, Prince Street Bridge, under-full yard sluices and commissioning at Capricorn Quay, which is planned to be done by the summer season. Finally, the harbour remains in compliance with the Ports and Marine Facilities Safety Code, with positive audit progress, remaining compliant with the aids to navigation and ongoing training across the team. The Maritime Coast Guard Agency, the MCA, code compliance exercise is due to be completed on the 31st of March 2026, which will see the harbour remain compliant for the next 2 years until 2029, when the next compliance exercise will take place. We ask the committee to note this report.
Thank you, David. I'm just going to just add that a couple of things on this around the safety review. So obviously we noted last time the sad deaths in the harbour, and that has continued to be something that has had some press attention and an ongoing dialogue within the city. So, you know, the fact that we're undertaking that review, I don't want to prejudge what may or may not come out of that, but I think it is something that we need to seriously consider and look forward to that coming back to us. The other thing I was going to say on that is that the Harbour stakeholder group has also had a discussion about safety measures around the harbour, which they are feeding into that review, and will be submitted. I've submitted to the Harbour Office. I believe they've submitted it to the Harbour Office. Their paper isn't, because of the timings for, bringing papers to this meeting. That will be part of their paper to the next meeting. But I think we maybe need to think about how we get the Harbour stakeholder group papers to this meeting in a timely fashion, and whether they need to go through the full process that other council papers are required to. But I just wanted to highlight to members that that conversation has been happening with our stakeholder group and partners across the Harbour Authority. Any other comments or questions, Patrick?
Thank you. I will just briefly associate myself again with the comments around safety. That's obviously our top priority for everyone here, and if there is anything that this committee can do to support officers in their work on this, please do let us know. I will just say, while I'm slightly perturbed at the image of me in an elf onesie now being officially in the council papers, it's a good report. Thank you for bringing it. I had two quick questions to raise, please. One is around Capricorn Quay. I feel like for quite a while we've been hearing that the aim is to complete this and get people there in the next quarter or the next season. I'm just wondering what the hold-up is, and if we are confident that this time we will get people in for the upcoming spring season, which we are in now, really.
Yep. Thank you for your question. So, yes, Capricorn Quay, when I came into post just over 8 weeks ago, it was very much a hot topic there, and fully understand it still is. So the work's been progressing now. It's now been the stage where the pontoons are in its final location. I believe there was a delay previously due to sorting out the structural integrity of the walkway, which caused a few delays. That's been resolved, and all the pontoons and the gangway are now safely in location. What is waiting to be done for the final commissioning relates to services. So this is connecting up the electricity, connecting up the potable drinking water, and also sewage water as well. With those, we are relating on contractors to undertake this work, and it is actually, I believe, about 5 different contractors to connect up 3 different bits of infrastructure. And making of arrangements is proving to be a challenge, but we've got a really strong team here. We're working very hard with that, and we're confident we are going to be having open for business for, we're saying the summer, but we're keen this is going to be done before that. So I hope we'll be able to send an email and some photos in due course with happy campers, or at least happy sailors.
Thank you. That's great to hear. Could I just ask if we've learned any lessons from the delays and the initial structural weaknesses? Was that an issue with the initial contractors, perhaps?
To be honest, that's a little bit early to say. So when the project's finished, with my prior background, I very much understand the importance of doing lessons learnt and doing a full debrief, and that would be part to be done once we're opened, once we've done soft open and a hard open. We'll be able to do a lessons learnt and be able to do a review on that.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to quickly raise, I've had a bit of an uptick in the last couple of months of correspondence, which I think I've spoken a bit with Eric about via email on boat dwellers burning non-regulation fuel and causing air pollution. Can I just check if we've got what work we're doing ongoing to deal with that, please?
So air pollution isn't within the remit or our authority directly as a harbour. So this is something we're taking up with actually comes under Port Health to do with air regulations. So it's something we've raised with our colleagues on a formal level. On an informal level, we are sort of raising the discussion with boat dwellers to remind them of the importance of burning clean fuels where needed to maintain for the heating and for the moving of their vessels.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick, for those questions. And yeah, I think with regards to Capricorn Quay, obviously, I appreciate the challenges, and we've discussed them in private previously, haven't we? But the sooner the better at this stage. And but I fully appreciate the challenges, and I also appreciate your comments there about the importance of doing a debrief. And I think if we can have that as well, that would obviously help us when we're looking at future projects that might that come down. That are coming down the track towards us, so that we can maybe mitigate against similar situations arising again. Sibs.
Hi, can I just check in terms of the report? Thanks for that. Just wanted to ask something that's not in the report. In terms of the stakeholder groups or the boaters community or the commercial leaseholders, and their satisfaction or whatever, would that be part of the harbour's KPIs, or is that not?
It's not currently part of the KPIs. We are reformulating it as we have a new broom in place. We're reviewing the KPIs and making sure we have the right ones in place to give the right answers. Certainly, satisfaction of our berth holders, our customers, is very important, and that will be sort of one of the things we look at, how we can successfully measure that to get the right response. Engagement with stakeholders is something we hold very dear to ourselves as a harbour authority, and make sure we reach the right level.
Thanks, David. Sibs?
Yeah, I think it would be great because when you look at, for example, the housing team, they run the surveys with residents to find out what's the residents, if their service is working or not. I think with the harbour, we also need to understand how the commercials are feeling and how the residents are also feeling, and maybe that's part of the KPI, apart from just hard infrastructure KPIs. Is that something that you feel would be embedded, and at which point do you think we'll have an updated KPI approach?
We do plan to run surveys, customer satisfaction surveys for our boat users and our commercial tenants. We can.
I think in that as well, it's important to appreciate that we'll need to that there might be different measures of satisfaction depending on whether we're talking about visitors, those with liveaboard licenses, the commercial operators, etc. But yeah, I'm absolutely associate myself with the idea that we should be measuring that, and as part of the overall suite of things that we need to monitor as an authority. Andy.
Yeah, sorry, I think I might have missed it because my hearing is not too brilliant. But Capricorn Quay, when it's completed, how many berths? Is it 22 berths on there? About 22?
It's 36 berths.
Yeah. What have we got it? Have we got many of those sort of booked up now in anticipation for?
Yeah, Andy, we've got 3 waiting to go on, permanent moorers. The intention initially is to turn it over to visitors' moorings to make best use of it through the summer season as we get permanent moorers applying to take up a mooring on the pontoon. So we will drop the number of available visitor spots. So we should see good use of the pontoon from the onset.
Is it worth advertising those berths now?
Yeah, we've been working with comms, Saffron, and we're actively engaged with putting ourselves out there. We've got the Harbour website. We're running the Instagram. It's on Instagram. And yeah, we are making a point of putting ourselves out there. One of the intentions is to bring Cardiff Yachting Club over for a visit, and we're going to put them on the pontoons. It would be good for sort of bringing awareness of what we've got to other ports within the Bristol Channel, and it would be an excellent photo opportunity for Saffron on our comms team.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Any other comments or queries on the Harbour Master's report? I'm not seeing any hands. So thank you, David. We are asked to note the contents of that report, so consider it noted. And move on to the finance report. So, Kevin, do you want to speak to this, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This finance forecast report is an update, and it's for noting by the Harbour Committee. The revenue and capital budget for 25-26 was agreed by full council on the 25th of Feb 2025, and this report presents the revenue and capital finance forecast at period 9 against the approved budget. The Harbour Authority's forecast anticipates a break-even outturn with a marginal 11k overspend as at December, this P9 forecast. It's supported by 766k of subsidy from the Council's General Fund. The forecast position has improved by 20k since the last forecast due to reduced planned and responsive maintenance costs, helping to alleviate some of the harbour pressures. The forecast report includes detailed variances in income and expenditure, ongoing mitigation efforts, which are documented in the risks and opportunities log, reserve movements, and capital forecasts. The key revenue forecasts for the services: docks engineering, a 5k overspend; estate services, 51k overspend; marine services, a 10k underspend; harbour car parks, 44k surplus; other harbour services, about a 2k surplus. Income pressures are forecasted on engineer consultancy fees and discontinued grant funding, but there are improvements from events concessions and harbour services happen to offset this. Expenditure underspends arise from reduced employee costs due to vacancies, lower rent payment, reduced R&M, and a transfer of NNDR responsibilities. But there are overspends noted against legal recharges, engineer design fees, and car parking maintenance. The reserves are forecasted, they include the docks dredging reserve, transfer to the docks dredging reserve, and the potential to use a 20k that we've got in a general harbour reserve, although this has not been forecasted as of yet, while we work through the final position and try and mitigate the 11k before year end. On capital, the P9 forecast for both Underfall Yard sluice repairs and Prince Street Bridge repairs are anticipating some slippage, and the underspends will be reprofiled into next financial year. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Kevin. Members, are there any questions for Kevin on this report? Patrick.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Kevin, as always, for this report. It's good. Yeah, it's good to see the work that's being done here. My main question was over the £43,000 deficit in the docks engineering income section. It says that the Environment Agency has discontinued funding for stopgate operations. Would you mind just defining stopgate operations for us lay people, please, and also just maybe do you know why they've discontinued that? If we can get it back?
The stopgate operations, they're centred around keeping the harbour level where it should be. A lot of spring tides, and they occur throughout the year, are higher than the harbour level, and there's actions that have got to take place to stop the water coming to the harbour. Worst case scenario, the bigger tides, you're looking at potential flooding of the city if work is not undertaken by harbour staff. This was always paid for by the Environment Agency. The Environment Agency reviewed that situation, and they've decided that they no longer wish to fund our operation of the stopgates.
Thank you very much.
Patsy wants to add, and then I might, depending on what Patsy says.
So just to add to that, when the Environment Agency did decide they were no longer going to fund that operation, we did escalate it, the full length of the escalation procedure in the MOU. That included me meeting with regional directors and myself and John meeting with the national director to try and get them to change their minds. They felt their budget restraints didn't enable them to do so, so we weren't successful, but we did exhaust all avenues trying to change their minds and continue that funding.
Thanks, Patsy. And I think the other thing I would add, and I can see Andy's indicating as well, but I'll come to you in a minute or so, Andy. But just to respond, just to add to that, I think the other thing that we need to consider with the Environment Agency is, A, they're an agency of government and under financial constraints in a not dissimilar way to the way the councils are, but also we often have multiple, we have relations with them with regards to multiple number of projects. So we've obviously the Underfall Yard sluices and funding towards the Bristol Avon Riverside's 2100 project as well. So, you know, there is in our relationship with them with regards to this funding, we obviously have to be aware of the substantial amount of funding that we get for other projects from them as well. So I think there is a balance to be struck in terms of how miffed we can feel about this 43,000 when they're giving us millions elsewhere.
Thank you.
So if you can come back in on that, and then Andy's next on my list.
I appreciate the, it's disappointing to lose the funding, but I do appreciate the balanced picture, as you say. Thank you for that explanation.
Andy.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe it's not for now, but maybe for later, it would be useful to try and break down the various sort of subheadings into sort of business units. For example, I see that the Docks estate gets the whole hit of the contribution to central support costs of £300,000. Now, I'm sure that's broken up between engineering, marine services, and other harbour services, possibly. And equally, the car parks, I mean, I would have thought the income from them would have gone into estates rather than be a separate heading themselves. But that's maybe something to consider for the future. The one thing that's sort of popping out at me at the moment is the loss of about £30,000 in anticipated income for the Maritime Heritage Centre. Was there a reason for that, please?
Yeah, it's regarding a car park, Andy. It's a Maritime Heritage Centre car park, and there were some unforeseen repairs that were needed to it. So that's where, yeah, plus a little bit of a drop in income to the forecast.
Yeah, Patsy.
So just in relation to the unexpected costs there and the loss of funding there, I fully expect over the next 5 years that we will go through this every year where we'll have increased income in some areas. Some plans won't work out quite as we hoped in the business plan, and that's why it's important that every single year we review the business plan, we update where we're doing more successfully than we thought, and you know, we will have to maybe pull back on some ideas that aren't going to be as credible as we thought they were. So it will be a moving feast all of the time.
Thank you. Any other comments on the finance report? Sibs.
Yeah, so I was just going through a bit more here. Can you explain a little bit about the deferred new walk cuts and its significance? The new wall cuts, the 1 million is being deferred. Are you moving that to another year, or is it? Yeah, it's P151481001. So highways capital budget for Harbour Works.
Sorry, what are you referring to, Sibs?
The paragraph that talks about the deferral. The project, approximately 1 million of the budget can be deferred to 2026, 2027. Yeah, new cut walls, yeah.
Oh, right, so that's the highways. Yeah. Yeah, so that's highways funding, it's not harbour funding. It's just an update on what we're doing with the bridges across the harbour.
Okay, okay, thanks. So it's not the budget of the harbour being deferred, that's just transport, just delaying what it's doing. Okay, that's great. And then in terms of the detailed inspection to Perros Bridge, ended up with a good reduction of 30k to the actual budget. Do most projects always get a detailed inspection, or do they get just a high-level inspection until they need a detailed? Because this is a good savings. How come that wasn't spotted earlier? And where are those opportunities to spot things like that? Because then that's a good reduction.
So it depends on the structure. So some require statutory principal inspections, some require a high-level inspection, and some of those are laid out statutory. So bridges are required to have a structural inspection. I think it's once every 6 years. Okay. And so depending on the structure is depending on the approach you take to it. Sometimes visual inspection will give you everything you need. Yeah. Sometimes, as in the case with Redcliffe Bridge, until we opened Redcliffe Bridge, we didn't know what we were going to find, and the damage was much more significant than we thought it was going to be. Okay. So a visual inspection will only give you so much detail, and then you will have to go ahead and do a principal inspection. Principal inspection,
okay. And within this budget, is there any contingency for works that you may need to do because you've now undertaken a detailed inspection?
So the works for inspection just cover the inspection. So where we just ask for the funding for the harbour walls inspection, that is just for the inspection. We will need to make a further capital bid for the findings from that inspection. It is a principal inspection, so it will be detailed, it will be diverse, it will give you a full report on the works needed. Then we'll have to come back through the process with the capital bid for the works needed, and that report will inform what we ask for. Does that answer?
Thanks. Thank you, Patsy. Any other questions on the Harbour Committee budget? Sorry, the finance report update, I should say. I'm going to pick up on something that we discussed offline, Kevin, if that's all right, and ask members if these papers that we see at Harbour Committee in terms of financial reporting are much more detailed than the other policy committees get. Would members like to continue seeing papers in this format so that we can drill down into the individual lines in the way that we've done? For example, those questions about the car parking come from the Maritime Heritage Centre, for example.
I think it's helpful. I think the question would be, is it a disproportionate burden on officers to prepare? But if it's not, then it would be good to keep receiving this. But I'm keen to hear what the officers have to say on that first.
So, Kevin, I appreciate that. You know, I sort of maybe dropped you in it a little bit here. But you know, I am aware that obviously we do get the budget in a different way than other committees do. But can you answer Patrick's point about the proportionality of presenting it in this way as opposed to the way that other committees receive?
Yeah, Yeah, you are privileged, I suppose, in that this is developed, and I was asked to get involved with developing these papers, which are much more detailed than any of the other committees. My manager and others have pointed that out, that you are receiving far more, and whether we should drop, now that you've got full committee status, whether that needs to drop now into line with the other committee finance reports, which are produced not by myself, they're produced by another central team in the corporate finance world. I need to have a word. I need to feed back your comments, and higher levels above me will make those decisions on what support I can provide to you. Clearly I like what I do and what I've produced, so and you do. So I can't say for definite what will happen.
I'd say I hope it's helpful. I hope I've not just made things more complicated for you, but I hope it's helpful that you're able to say that this is what the Harbour Committee members appreciate. I can see Kevin's indicated, but Patsy has also asked to come in. So, Kevin.
So I'm not surprised by this discussion. I kind of expected it, and I think it's healthy to have. And as most of you will know that my previous life, I was in a role similar to Patsy's, another authority, and I undertook the role David's undertaking now, as has Andy. This crops up because a Harbour Committee doesn't sit neatly into a local authority system. It never does, whether it's in Cornwall, Torbay or Bristol. So it doesn't surprise me for 1 minute that your bosses don't understand why it's being done, because I had the same battle in Torbay, and I'm sure Andy did in Cornwall. But that doesn't mean that it is wrong. It is absolutely right, because this is about governance. The Harbour's role is to govern. The Harbour Committee's role is to govern in all manners that you normally do in good governance. The Harbour Authority of Bristol, and that includes managing the finances at an appropriate level of detail. If many of you might be on boards, whether you're school governors or on boards of companies, you wouldn't get away with a high level. De minimis amount of financial detail. You absolutely wouldn't, and nor should you here. So I think this level of detail is spot on. It's not too much, I don't think. It's not too little. I think it's about right. In fact, Chair, I'm going to raise under the next item the issue of budget setting, which is another important part of the governance role, which I suspect, well, I know it will be done at full council. I never did win that battle in Torbay, but nonetheless, it should be a recommendation from this committee to full council what the appropriate budget should be for the Harbour Authority. And so whether it's in the January meeting or I think March is too late, quite frankly, or I've heard rumours there's a November meeting, but November or January should be a paper coming forward, not the monitoring paper that we're seeing now, but a budget setting paper with the same level of detail that picks up on things like the changes you've made to the budget based on the shortfall of income experience this year, and you've reprofiled it, Kevin, for next year because you didn't get that consulting income you expect. All of that information that you do as officers on a day-to-day basis would go into that budget report and come to the members here to have that deep dive that's just been going on in the last 10 minutes. So I fully endorse it, and I would hope that the committee, and I know the chair will back you in your discussions with your superiors. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Andy's coming in, and then I'll come back to you, Patsy. Andy.
Yeah, we did actually get that done in Cornwall. We used to do it in the November meeting. We'd have the budget setting by the Harbour Board with the updated business plan so that you've got an idea of what you want to do, how you're going to pay for it. And those two sort of went up to the full council for them to approve.
Thank you, Andy. Patsy, do you want to come back in?
Okay, I'll come back on both points. So I do think that I didn't know that you're under pressure, Kevin, and I'm happy to support you as well. But I do think this has gone a long way in why we've got no public forum today, the openness and transparency about how we're spending money. I don't think it's out of line to say that I think there was mistrust on what amount of money was coming into the harbour and how that money was being spent. And I think a long way in building that trust has showing them right to the nth detail, this is what we've got and this is how we spend it. So I think, you know, for at least for the next financial year, we should continue that, definitely. And in the medium-term financial plan, we have set the general fund allocation to the harbour until 29-30, but I absolutely take on board your points that we should be coming back here as part. I think the business plan updates September, and as part of that, we should be saying, and we're changing it to this because this has been a success, or we've got a new idea that we're following up. So I agree with you, Kevin, that you should absolutely come back here.
Okay, thank you. Patrick, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I would actually like to, in light of the discussion, go back on my previous comments. I've been convinced that you're quite right, Kevin. Thank you. We've got governance responsibilities for a ring-fenced account and technically a separate body within the council. It's not just another policy committee department, even if we administer it as such. If there is a disproportionate burden on officers, maybe we could consider hearing the finance update every other committee, if that would be allowed. I don't know, but certainly keeping this level of detail accessible to the committee and the public regularly is important. There's maybe a wider constitutional issue which we should probably take outside of this meeting, which was briefly touched on, of whether it should be the Harbour Committee recommending its budget to full council instead of strategy and resources. But that's probably one we're not going to solve in this meeting.
Yeah, I think that's just a pathway we follow. I think that's the pathway we follow at the moment. The harbour budget is approved by full council, but it's part of the overall package of budgetary papers.
Yeah, it would go through strategy and resources first and then full council. But I think that's an interesting challenge, Kevin, and something that we're not going to solve here, but something that we need to take away. I mean, I guess, playing devil's advocate a little bit, I guess the powers that be will say that, whilst the general fund is still subsidising the harbour authority, it might be considered that the tail is wagging the dog in that scenario, but that's maybe just, that's me thinking out loud. I mean, I think we maybe need to work out a way in which this body can get input into that budgeting process, and particularly, and what then become the priorities for both revenue and capital spending in the Harbour Authority budget. So I think that's maybe part of the journey we're on. Andy, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, I mean, I used to say to people above me that that you need to understand that the harbours are a statutory function of the council. It's not like Parks and Gardens, with respect, or other council services. It's a statutory function.
Thank you. Sebs.
Yeah, I don't agree that everything needs to be systemised. Some things do need their own autonomy. And whilst there's the 5-year vision, I think keeping the detailed accounts would help, because this is all part of the harbour place shaping. And if you place shaping, you're trying to bring all your stakeholders with you on that journey. Now, to change the budget or reduce it in one way or another, then members, as they normally would come up, they say, I'm coming here, but the decision is made somewhere else, which is what was frustrating for them. We'd be going back to that cycle. So I think until that harbour place shaping strategy vision is achieved, and we have a stakeholder group that is really on board, both the commercial and everything else is on board, and they can see that there's satisfaction in all those stakeholders, then fair enough, it's progressed. But up until that point, I don't think any changes is necessary. This level of detail kind of gets us on the same journey as you. Otherwise, I need to look at this paper then I need to look at economy and skills, then look at strategy and resources. No ways. Don't have the time, don't have the headspace for that. So I really appreciate the time and patience that you're taking in doing this. It's not just us that you're bringing on board, it's also the members of the public that have an interest in how the harbour is place shaping in itself. So understandably, there may be different decisions, different discussions. I think we have to keep in mind the stakeholders in the journey that we are taking.
Thanks, Sims. Right, I'm going to pull this item to a close, but hopefully, Kevin, you can take that back when the next time you're challenged on this and send them in my direction if you need to. So we've asked to note the contents of the report, so I'm going to consider that noted. And moving on to the last item, which is the Harbour Committee Work Programme. So this outlines a work programme for the Harbour Committee based on there being 4 meetings in the 26-27 civic year. We are considering whether a 5th should be slotted in probably around about November time. We're also very conscious that the way this has fallen out, June meeting looks very, very, very busy. So that could be a challenge for A, me managing that meeting, and B, the extent to which some of those items could be will be available for debate as opposed to being provided for information and noting without much surrounding debate. Can I ask members? I think we've caught all the things that we have asked that have been added on over the past couple of years, and it's been quite an iterative process to work out what things we need to see on a regular basis and how often we need to see them. For example, the offence update is on twice a year as per what's become standard practice, and there's other regular items that have been added over the past couple of years as standing items. But can I ask members if there's anything that you feel is on there that shouldn't be, and vice versa, anything that you feel is missing from the list that should be on there? And I saw you indicate a wee second ago, Kai, so I'll come to you first.
Thanks. Just on the Redcliffe Wharf item that's due to come to the next meeting, is there going to be any prior consultation with this committee on what that paper looks like, or is it just going to land at the committee with us?
There would be the agenda briefing, but we're happy if you want some briefings beforehand, we're more than happy to arrange those.
Yeah, that would be good if I can have one. I don't know if anyone else is interested. And just on one of the events updates, can we have quite a focus on the Harbour Festival in one of those? Because I know the agreement's up soon, isn't it? In terms of, is it 2027 that the agreement comes to an end?
I think the short answer is yes, Kai, okay. to your question. I would like to see something on the Harbour Festival. I think it's 2027 at the moment that I'm seeing nods from officers.
Yeah, there's a long lead-in time to these things, isn't there? So in terms of what that looks like going forward after 2027, I think we need to start talking about.
I think that's a good call in terms of how do we prep for what comes beyond. I think they've got an option to extend, but that's...
Yeah, we have to be mindful that the events is the remit of the Public Health and Communities Committee, and the Chair has said that he would welcome any comments, Kai, but he has been clear that the Harbour Festival and the events programme does fall within his remit, so we do have to be careful to respect the boundaries of other committees.
But also, well, they need our permission to run it, don't they? They need our permission to run it, don't they?
I'm going to say I share an office with the Chair of Public Health and Communities, so I might take this conversation up with him offline.
And I serve both.
Any other comments? Sibs and then Kevin.
We've got the, where is it here? Sorry. The asset management plan. And in the last discussion, we're talking about the lease terms and how long the leases need to be. Because if the commercial units are running on short leases or long-term leases, and I think that discussion or decision was strategy and resources or economy and skills in the last discussion. That's what we're talking about. Having a long-term lease gives more certainty, but the lease is more with properties than it is with, yeah. So I just want to understand if when this paper comes, would it be clarifying the asset ownership and the lease terms and all that kind of stuff with it?
No, so the asset management plan refers to what Kevin was asking about before. So it's about, it's an update to our asset management plan. So how we'll manage the assets within the harbour, including regular maintenance and planning and repairs.
Infrastructure.
It's infrastructure. So the leases, while we do have a partnering corporate landlord, the decision on the leases rests with the Harbour Authority. So the way it works is they will do the negotiating on our behalf, and the leases always come to me now. I'm the last person that signs off a lease now, and it will be David going forward. But they act on our behalf. We have a property partner, but it's still a harbour lease. So the leases, whether long-term, short-term or not, David and I are both cited on those. They're negotiated by property partners, but they're the responsibility for the harbour.
Thank you, Patsy. Any other questions or comments on the work programme, Kevin?
Sorry, Chair. I'm just going to go back to that last discussion about budget setting. I've just looked at the terms of reference that were agreed in January when the committee was made decision making, and you know, without boring everyone with reading it now, the whole section on finance leaves, to me, it makes it clear that the Harbour Committee sets the charges, although arguably they won't be approved until they go to full council. That's usually how it works. But reading between the lines, although it doesn't explicitly say that you will recommend the revenue budget for the next year, it pretty much says that without saying it, if that makes sense. So I appreciate it's an internal discussion to be had, but I think it would be most odd indeed if the committee doesn't eventually get to a position where it receives a draft budget and recommends it up the line. That seems the most logical thing to do, and I appreciate it might not happen this year, but you know, even if the terms of reference could be adjusted, and actually there's room for this committee to recommend adjustments to the terms of reference. Again, I'm not suggesting that now because I think discussions will need to be had about it, but that's an opportunity that we could look into in the future. And so, in terms of the work programme, for me, I think setting the budget is a critical part of any financial year and any governance process. And so to not do it would be odd, is all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that input. And yeah, I think this is something that we need to flesh out a little bit more. Patsy.
So I would recommend as well, bearing in mind the conversation we've had today, that we move the Harbour 5-year strategy review and business plan review to September, when we look at the budget and fees and charges, so that we can do that in order to, because we will be into budget setting then, and doing it in January will leave us too late.
Yeah, thank you. So we can bring that forward on the schedule. Patrick.
Thank you. Just regarding, partly related to Redcliffe Wharf, but the general items around Bristol Harbour activated, as more of those proposals flesh out, will we see those being added into the work programme in advance of meetings so that we will get to make the key decisions and so on?
We have put a couple of them in already. So the Redcliffe Wharf is a decision coming out of the prospectus, and the commercial expressions of interest, that is direct interest that we've had from the commercial prospectus, and so we will be asking the committee to make, some of them will be committee decisions, some of them will be smaller commercial things that we're just updating you about, but they fall within my delegation because they're not They don't bring in enough money to warrant a committee decision, but we plan to brief the committee on those anyway.
And I think in direct answer to Patrick, this is obviously not an exhaustive list. So if any of those commercial decisions are later in being ready to be signed off, they would come to a later committee. I think it's that.
Thank you. I think that's reassuring to hear. There's some really encouraging progress happening with Bristol Harbour activated, and I think we're all keen to see it succeed, especially given the financial challenges we face. So, thank you.
Brilliant. Any other questions, or can we consider this? We are asked to agree the content. So this is actually going to require a vote. So can I look for a seconder on agreeing the content of the work programme?
Seconded.
Thank you, Patrick. All those in favour? And that's unanimous again. So thank you, everyone. And that is the end of this meeting. So the next scheduled Harbour Committee is that bumper one on the 23rd of June. The diary invite has been extended already to 4 hours. Hopefully we won't require the whole 4 hours, but I might have to bring in my own guillotine and cut people short if they are talking for too long at that meeting, because clearly it's going to be a bumper session, and with what promises to be some quite meaty decisions as well. So I'm really looking forward to it, actually, because I think it reinforces the importance that making this committee decision-making will have had when we start seeing decisions, for example, on the future of Redcliffe Wharf coming here rather than being made at strategy and resources as they would previously have been. So, looking forward to it, but it is going to be a challenging meeting in terms of length potentially for members. So do bring cushions, snacks, whatever else you need to get you through. But for now, I'm going to close the meeting.